Hello, it's Chris the Frog of Sewer Spewer with yet another video in my series where I talk about new releases coming out of Jojage or so-called Montreal and so-called Quebec in so-called Canada. And in this video, I'll be going through releases that came out in October of 2025. Now, I'm recording this midway through November. It's been very hard to find a day to actually sit down and do these videos. My life is kind of a chaotic mess. But I'm finally getting around to doing it because I really want you to be listening to all of these amazing releases. And wow, there are a lot. There's about 30 albums and EPs I'll be talking about in today's video. So let's not waste any more time. I'll try to be as brief as possible with each description, but let's jump straight into it. But before we get to the October releases, I have two albums that came out in September that I missed in last month's video just because they flew under my radar, and I knew I was forgetting something just because the list of releases that came out in September was a bit short. But these are some pretty significant albums, so I would be remiss if I didn't mention them. The first one coming from local garage punk veterans, the Gruesomes, and their first new record in 25 years called Dimension of Fear, which is out through the German label Sound Flat Records. And this band was formed in the 1980s, and they have a bit of a horror punk edge to them. But on this record, I feel that they have more songs about relationship troubles, with maybe one or two spooky related songs, but still really worth the listen. And it's just incredible that they're still doing music after all these years. The other album that came out in September is coming from a punk band called Morose, called À l'ombre de la folie. And the singer of this band, Bianca, I've played shows with her about 10 years ago with her old band Headcase. She was also in another band called No Chaser, so I'm glad that she's still doing music. And this band is interesting because they don't have a drummer, so I'm guessing the drums on this album are from a drum machine. And the other interesting thing about this record, if you download it for free off of Bandcamp, you will get a bonus track, which is a cover from a Quebec 90s punk band called Les Secrétaires Volants. Okay, now we are diving into the October releases, starting off with a folk punk polka billy band called Bad Uncle and their sixth album, Horrendous Monsters. And it's been 9 years since the last time they released an album. But this band is really cool. They have an accordion player and a stand-up bass player, and they have two singers, but they just happen to have the deepest voices possible. One singer has like this incredibly low voice that I can't even hit those octaves with my voice. It's just like so low, and you can barely understand what he's saying, but it's very cool to listen to. Next, we have a new indie rock band called Mantourage and their Summer Demos, which has a very chill, summery vibe to it, but not really the best thing to be listening to this time of year. But I want to give a shout out to one of the members, Zach Bruce, who's also in the band Barnacle, and who I worked with when I was at CJLO. Next is coming from indie rock band Ribbon Skirt and their new EP, Pensacola, which is off of the Vancouver label Mint Records. And this is the second release that Ribbon Skirt has put out this year as a follow-up to their debut album. And I really like what they're doing on this EP, though. Some songs have a bit of a grunge vibe to it, while others have a bit of an alt-pop vibe to it, mostly because of these effects that they put on the vocals. Next, we have noise rock band Tofu Juice and their debut EP, The Opening Half. And this is a sister band to the immigrant punk band Faux Watson. But the vocals on this EP are very interesting. They kind of have like this disconnected attitude to it. They're partially spoken word, but they're really put to the front and they kind of overpower all the other instruments on the EP. Next, we have indie band Bernadette and their new EP, Poupée de Son. And it's funny because this EP I kind of put off listening to until near the end of the month, but when I finally did get around to listening to it, I actually quite liked it. I was very surprised. They have these punchy bass lines that I really like and these spacey synths with these layered vocals, so very cool sound. Next, we have street punk band Reaction with their debut album Summertime Vibe, which is off of the Gatineau label Pills Records. And this band has members of The Ruffians, Unwanted Noise, and Destructive. So if you know those bands, then you can actually hear the stud count in these recordings, as well as gang vocals galore. Oh my god, so many gang vocals on this album. And I also want to give a shout out to the homie Grayson Carpenter, who did the mixing on this album. Next, we have experimental rock trio Geronimo's hit single and their new EP, Nobody Work, which is the 5th release that they put out this year. Which makes sense though, because this is a live recording of what I'm guessing is an improvisational jam between the saxophone player, guitarist, and drummer. And it was released 3 days after it was recorded, so that's how they're able to pump out so much music this year. And it does have some spoken word segments in this record, and one line that I really enjoyed goes, "A picture is worth 1,000 cigarettes." Next, we have comedy metal band Estorpth and their second album, Estorpth Chapter 2 Part 1, Estorpthia. And my friend Phil Avalon, who I also used to work at CJLO with, sent me this album. He plays the keyboards and sings a bit on this record. And also shout out to Colin McAndrew of bands Ash Breather and Anna Pest, who does the drums on this album. And this is about a band from Orange County that kind of gets sucked into the past and they're trying to get to the future. But it's very interesting because there's like these narrations in between songs, and every time they're introduced to a new character, then this whole song and dance comes along. So yeah, very funny listen and very entertaining, tells a story, and I'm very interested to see where this story progresses. Next up, we have punk band Caniche and their debut album Enfin Connu. And I don't have too much to say about this album other than it's just fun, catchy, short songs, and I think you'll really enjoy listening to it. Next, we have a new hardcore band called Casino, and their demo, We All Lose, but I think it's closer to an album because it has 9 songs. How many demos do you know have 9 songs on them? And this band has members of Bruiserweight, Crosscheck, Shutaway, and Gasm, so really an all-star lineup from the hardcore scene in Montreal. And this band has a lot of grind influences, which I really enjoy because I'm a grindcore girly. And shout out again to Grayson Carpenter, who did the mixing on this album. Next, we have sludge metal band Doomsday Dementia and their 4th album, Thoughts, Prayers, and Other Useless Bullshit. And this was recorded DIY, so it has kind of a lo-fi sound to it, but it's very heavy on samples, and one song in particular that I enjoyed is all about the Titan submersible. So it has a bunch of news clips about that incident where a bunch of billionaires died, which I'm always happy about hearing. Next, we have alt-rock band Splash and their new EP, Corrode, which is off of the Toronto label Homie Shit Mag. And I like what they do with this band because it has the hardcore distortion with shoegaze vocals. And there's 4 tracks on this EP, but really it's just 2 tracks with an instrumental intro and interlude in between. Next up, we have post-punk artist Alix Fernz and their new album Symphonie publicitaire sous influence, which is out through Mothland Records, and this is the 2nd album under the name Alix Fernz. They were previously putting out music off of the name Bloodskin Atopic, and this album is very weird, but in a good way. Alix Fernz has this kind of like distorted inhuman voice throughout the album, and they have some collaborations with members of Show Sauvage and Alors Fantôme. And yeah, just overall a very weird synth-driven album that is definitely worth a listen. Next, we have post-punk band and my jam space roommates, Family Man, and their new EP, So It Goes. And there's a lot of variety on this EP. It goes from pop to hardcore mid-song, and the last track ends on this brutal metalcore breakdown note. So you almost get whiplash from the genre switching on this EP. Next up, we have new post-rock band Jamais, Mort and their debut EP, Cadre Invisible. And this band has members of Bâton Noir and Malajube and others, and all of the tracks on this EP are instrumental, which normally I'm not very receptive to because, as I mentioned before, I'm very much into vocals and I judge a band based on their vocals, but I do really like what they're doing on this EP. It really has this very interesting atmosphere, so yeah, go listen to it. Next, we have black metal duo Black Market Fossil and their new album, Nécrose de l'Esprit. And I played a show with this band, but unfortunately I didn't get to see them live because I was working the door when they were on stage. But I am looking forward to seeing them play the next time. And I think this album is just like the perfect thing to listen to this time of year because it's getting cold and darker, and it just has like this very frigid, kind of morbid sound to it, which is perfect for listening to this time of year. Next, we have post-punk band Uzu and their second album, Acquis la Liberté, which is off of the France label Symphony of Destruction. And despite the French title, all of the lyrics on this album are in Arabic. And the vocals have this vibrato quality to it for a very spooky effect. Next, we have dream pop band Diamond Day and their new EP, Oubliette. Which, if you think dream pop, you think, oh yes, it's just gonna be like this kind of like dreamy, light sound to it. But then it gets super chaotic on the third track, and I was really not expecting it, but I enjoyed it. Next up, we have queer synth pop artist Catherine Jeanne-D'Arc and their debut album, Dopamine. And this is the solo project of the singer of the now defunct punk band Sharon. And I've said this before when I was reviewing Sharon's music, but I really feel like they have like this larger than life personality that really comes through in their music. And I enjoy the fact that they are constantly switching between French and English. I feel it just like makes for a very unique listen. Next, we have pop punk band Le Coloriage and their debut EP, Recré Infini. And I found the sound quality on this EP a bit scrappy, but in a good way. I feel like it's very charming, and I feel like they have just like this very youthful energy to them. Next, we have death metal band Scorching Tomb and their debut album, Ossuary, which is off of the Italian label Time to Kill Records. And on this record, they have these big riffs that you can two-step to. There's a lot of hardcore influence to it, as well as these guest appearances from the singers of Sanguisugabog and, of course, Primal Horde, who they've done a split with in the past. Next, we have hardcore band and my homies, Deadbolt, and their new EP, Disillusion. And this has new songs, but also re-recordings of songs off of their demo, which it was great to hear these songs that I'm familiar with just a bigger sound. And they also do a cover of a Warzone track, and I really love the energy that they're bringing to this EP. So shout out to Julia, shout out to Seb, and shout out to the wizard, Jordan Barolero, who did the recording and mixing on this. Next, we have folk punk band Smokespell and their third album, Blood, Sweat, and Death. And the singer of this band, Crystal, I've known for years. About 15 years ago, I was playing with her punk band, Chicks and Dicks, and I'm so glad that she's still doing music, and oh my god, her voice is incredible with this project. Like, she could be very sweet, but then she wails, and like the way she does it is just amazing. So yeah, shout out to you, Crystal. Keep doing what you're doing. Next, we have art rock band American Lips and their new album On Strike, which is their newest album in 8 years. And it really starts off like with a bang because in the first song there's like squealing saxophone and screaming, but then it mellows out a bit and it kind of has like this chill vibe to it. But I was really taken aback by that first track. Next, we have crust punk band Eulogy and their demo, which is out through Soremind, which is a cassette distro. So expect to see a cassette of this sometime soon. And I just really like crust punk in general. But what really stood out to me on this demo were the guitar solos. They're just ripping those solos every single song. All right, we're nearly at the end, but first we have to go through 5 releases that were put out on Halloween. The first being emo band Avec Plaisir and their second album, Active Listening, which is out through the label Sad Songs Records. And I like that they're doing some kind of math rocky hammer-on type guitar riffs on this album, but what I really enjoy are the album titles, which are somewhat punny, but also some of them are impossibly long, like this final track, which is called Florida Man on Drugs Kills Imaginary Friend and Turns Himself In. Then we have probably the most appropriate Halloween release coming from psychedelic rock band Cobra Barbara and their new EP, Fête Horreur Jean Carpenter. And each song kind of is about a different subgenre of horror. So it has a song about vampires, a song about zombies, but I really liked the last track, which is all about slashers, which kind of has like this new metal feel to it. It really reminds me of like those like new metal soundtracks that really dominated a bunch of movies in the early 2000s. Next, we have local deathcore heroes Despised Icon and their 7th album, Shadow Work, which is out through Nuclear Blast Records. Though this is their 3rd album that they've put out since reforming in 2014. And if you didn't know, Despised Icon has 2 vocalists. One has more of a hardcore style of singing, while the other does the growls and the breeze and this kind of like high-pitched scream. But I also like the fact that on every single record, they have a French song. And I think it's like really important to kind of like expose the fact that they are from Quebec to a larger audience that might not know this. But overall, just very strong album. It really fits in with the rest of their discography and is just all bangers. Next up, we have a new band called Glued Mouth and their debut album, Self-Medicated. And there's a lot of variety of extreme metal on this record. They go from like grindcore and power violence to more like atmospheric black metal. And this was started off more as a bedroom recording project, but I think they're gearing up to do some live shows. So stay tuned for that. And last, but definitely not least, are my homies in the anti-fascist hardcore band Trauma Bond, with their debut album, Ending is Better Than Mending. And my band Gutser got to play with Trauma Bond for the album launch. And I just like the positive message on this album, this overall message of resistance and fighting back against racism and fascism. I feel like it's very important with today's political climate, unfortunately. But yeah, shout out to them. Really cool people, and look forward to what they're doing in the future. Oh my god, we finally made it to the end. Thank you so much for watching up until now. Like I said, a lot of releases, and I've been meaning to do this video for a long time, so it's finally good to actually sit down and actually talk about all these releases. But if you want to hear music from these releases, I've made a YouTube playlist of these, though not all of these bands are on this playlist just because some of them are exclusively on Bandcamp. So if you don't find them in the playlist, which I'm going to put up here, then go seek them out on Bandcamp. Also, if you want to see more content from me, then obviously like and subscribe here on YouTube, but you can also follow me on social media, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and on there I do weekly videos where I talk about all of these shows that are happening in Montreal, specifically within the punk, metal, alt rock genres. I also do listings, and every month I try to do a video where I talk about releases coming out of Montreal. So stay tuned for the next video, which I'm slowly working on. Hopefully I'll get that done closer to the beginning of next month, but we'll see. Like I said, my life is a bit of a chaotic mess. But if you want to help and support me, then go to patreon.com/sewerspewer, where you could subscribe for $2 a month. And there you can get my master list of upcoming shows, as well as MP3s for my Bandcamp playlists. And yeah, like I said, stay tuned for the next video where I talk about releases that came out in November. And I've already started to listen to some albums, and it's gonna be a killer month, I could tell. So until then, thank you for watching, and until next month, ribbit ribbit.